afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Thursday afternoon. Seems like a long time we last met, but it was only a week ago. Thank you guys for joining us on time. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we ran a little long on the last meeting, and I want to make sure that we try to stick to our time as much as possible. And if we have to make adjustments moving forward or for a follow-up meeting, then let's do so ahead of time so that people can plan accordingly. I know that we have individuals that, you know, have to take care of their families and take care of other things. So I want to make sure we are respectful of that. I'm going to do a roll call. I think we have everybody here, but let me just do a roll call. I will start with Brandy Salcido. If I can get a here or a present. Okay, not there yet. Araceli Ortiz.
Here.
Alberto Torres. Alberto, no. Jocelyn Merce.
Here.
Brenda Zendejas.
Here.
Edgar Gudiel.
Present.
I was informed that Ms. Martinez wasn't going to be here and Ms. Tran was going to sit in the meeting. Ms. Lee Tran.
Here.
Ray Turner.
Present.
And Natalie Abal.
Present.
Thank you. Right now I have Brandy absent and I have Alberto Torres absent. If you guys come in, well, it looks like I see Brandy there. Let me wait 1 second here. Brandy, are you joining us? Ms.
Yes, I am.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for the delay. Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Okay, so moving on to the next item, we've established quorum. Public comments. If a speaker wishes to address the committee on an item on the agenda, time will be provided for public comment before or during consideration of that item. Public comments shall be limited to 2 minutes per person. And depending on how many individuals we have commenting, we may adjust that time. Thank you. And I will ask that we have several people here that are helping us moderate. And we will be going with initial comments by the committee before we open it up to public comments. Okay, item number 4, review and approval of order of the agenda. If you guys can take a look, committee members, if you do have a question, suggestion, please raise your hand or unmute yourself and give us any input if you seek to change the agenda for one reason or another. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I will.
Sorry. Just one quick.
Ms. Zendejas?
Yes. I saw a question mark under my name. And the time that I was here was around 5:20.
Is this on the order of the agenda?
Oops, sorry. We're not on minutes yet, right?
No, we're not. We're on item 4. Sorry about that. Thank you. So Anything else regarding the order of the agenda? If not, we'll move forward as agenda currently reads. Remember, line item 5 is just a placeholder for supporting materials. Any of these materials that are provided to you here will also be provided in our district website, so that yourself, committee members, community members can access that information.
I have a question, Señor Sánchez.
Yes.
Señora Araceli. El link es visible en la página del distrito para que los demás papás, si quieren entrar a nuestra reunión, puedan entrar.
Sí. Está abierto al público. It's open to the public.
Yeah, it's open to the public, but the link no está en el website. It's only on a picture, right?
Correcto. Sí, lo tiene que copiar. No, it's not a live link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Lo tiene que
okay.
copiar. Ajá.
¿Podrían ponerlo más fácil? Hay muchos papás que se les dificulta cómo hacerlo manual. So, si ponen el link, solamente le haces clic y te lleva directo a la reunión. So, es más fácil para que nuestros padres puedan llegar a estas reuniones públicas para que sepan un poquito más.
Buena idea. Gracias.
Thank you.
Mhm. So the comment was around the link and making it a live link so parents can easily click on to the website. I'm sorry, to the Zoom meeting through our district website. So we'll make sure to do that in the future. So next item is approval of minutes. We did email everyone the minutes. Please take a moment, and I'm hoping that you guys have had a chance to review them. I know that Ms. Zendejas, I think you had a comment regarding the minutes.
Yeah, I saw a question mark on the side of my name. I don't know if that's because they didn't know the time I was here, but I was here around 5:20, if you want to correct that.
Thank you. I'm going to give you guys another minute or so.
I have a question for minutes. So when you put review and approve under number 4, it just says the names, but we're not going in detail writing what each person said on paper, right?
No.
Okay.
No, this is, and we've gotten guidance on how to capture the minutes, right? And some of those details that in the past, I guess, were captured are not necessary. And so we're just trying to capture the very important aspects of the items and the decisions on those action items. Not necessarily the detail of the discussion. Okay, can I have somebody motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve the minutes with the correction of the question mark being removed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, I will put it to a vote if there's no other discussion. I'll start with Brandy Salcido,
Yes.
Araceli Ortiz,
Yes.
Alberto Torres, still absent, Jocelyn Merce,
Yes.
Brenda Zendejas,
Yes.
Edgar Gudiel,
Yes.
Lee Tran,
Yes.
Ray Turner,
Yes.
and Natalie Ball.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. The approval of the minutes passes. Next item, and here I will be turning it over to Mr. Art Hand, our consultant. And this is the piece around the update of the facilities repurposing information. So we have some information that we wanted to share, and we made some adjustments in how some of the data was presented also. We want to go through the items, and if we can go through the items and at the end and save our questions, and you guys can write them down and save those questions for the end, and we can always come back to any specific screen that you guys would like. But we'll go through it once, and then we'll go back to the screens, ask questions as you guys ask your questions. Okay? So I will turn it over to Mr. Art Hand.
Thanks, Renee. Hey, good evening, everybody. Glad to be back in our virtual meeting room again. You know, always good to see your bright, smiling faces and share some time with you. So I'm going to go at this again. Try one more time to do share screen. And so hang on. Here we go. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so moving on to the first slide. So as Renee mentioned last meeting, we had a lot of good back and forth, good questions and concerns that were raised, some requests for additional information, clarification on information, and that's what we're poised to present to you tonight. And our hope is that by going through this tonight, that we need to take a pretty big step forward in taking the first cut at making recommendations for schools to consider as part of our mission. Time's starting to work against us. May the 13th will be on us before we know it, and we still have a lot of work to do. So hopefully tonight's information will, like I say, push us a big step forward in that direction. So the first piece of information we're bringing to you tonight is a chart that you've seen before. The key element in the change to this admin utility cost chart is that, as per your request, we broke Fisher and Renaissance and Matson and Renaissance out into their individual line items. So now you can see how each of those is affected going forward by the projected drop in enrollment versus what we have right now on the table for operating costs. The other thing that you'll notice, excuse me, is that we've added down here at the bottom right-hand corner, there was a question about what makes up the admin utility cost section. And this information was provided to us by Colbert Chain's office. And these are the items or positions that make up the costs that you see in the column 2021 admin utility costs. We've also, here you see, I continue with my green line that we've had throughout the course of the meetings on this particular chart, or charts that were built off this model. And what you'll see here tonight is that I have highlighted in green in these two columns certain line items associated with schools on the ongoing admin per student costs. Excuse me, I suddenly got post-nasal drip and I have no Kleenexes, and so I'm going to power through this for a minute. I may have to take a break for a second, grab a Kleenex. So my apologies for that on the upfront. But with the green, what that indicates is that you'll see down here at the very bottom, in each of those two columns, we have a number, which is kind of the district's average number based on all the information that we've collected from the demographic study. And what you'll see with the green is that these are the numbers that are different, that are in excess of that average number going forward. So in this case, overall, the district is averaging, as an example, $2,036 per student for admin costs at its facilities in the 2021 school year. Projected out 6 years into the 26-27 school year, that number rolls up to 2708. And I think I got them all right, that the ones I've highlighted in green are the school sites whose per student costs for admin utilities exceed that average.
If I
Next
can
slide.
interject, Art,
sorry.
if you could go back to that slide.
Sure.
There's a couple other items I want to point out. The schools highlighted in yellow, these are schools of choice. One thing that was pointed out at the last meeting was that schools of choice typically have a set number of students that they allow, and most of them are maxed out every year. So where there was a discrepancy in the study that was shared was that it was projected to have that same downward decline that all schools have. That equation is slightly different for our small schools, right? So that was something that they didn't take into consideration as they presented that particular piece of information. So that's what you have there highlighted in yellow. I will also like to note that if you look at Fisher Middle School and Matson Middle School, they are somewhat higher in terms of administrative cost for those particular sites in comparison to Renaissance Academy 1 at Fisher and Renaissance Academy 2 at Matson. And that's due to the fact that the utilities cost was left at that particular site. So the utility cost wasn't broken up between the two sites. So the cost would be a lot closer. So that's I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that as we look at this piece, right?
Right, and thanks, Renee, and especially that last comment helps to clarify perhaps some of the confusion we had before. You'll see the numbers balance out a lot better in this model now that we've broken these apart, and you'll see in our note on the left-hand side that we've shared costs between the school sites, and again under the direction of Colvera, and so like I said, those things evened out quite a bit compared to what we had seen in the last couple of iterations of this particular base chart and the base information. Okay. Moving to the next slide, I'm just gonna, excuse me, sorry, oh, there we go. Now I'm really getting crazy. Back again. This is our VAPA slide. So one of the questions that came up last week was, where do we have arts programs, music, arts, different kinds of VAPA programs? And this is information that was provided by Renee's office, and we put it into the slide so you can see on a site-by-site basis what programs are at each school. We have a similar question on special ed, and this is special ed program data that we were able to gather and present to you, again, on a site-by-site basis. And then for clarification purposes and just kind of to reiterate some of the background that we know is so important in helping you guys formulate recommendations and make choices. We wanted to bring these maps back to you again. Again, this is the side-by-side comparisons of the students and where they reside versus the school sites that we have in the district. That one got off kilter a little bit there. Didn't realize that. Sorry about that. And then so we give you a chance, so as you study these, you can really drill down a little bit, perhaps more than you might otherwise. We've also provided each of these maps in their own separate slide. So you get a little bigger and better graphic representation about what you're seeing on the paper, or in this case, on the screen. And the same with the school site locations. And then the next slide is just one we wanted to put in here. I know we all know what the district's fortunes have been in the past few years, and certainly after the meetings that we've had here these last few weeks, we're all also aware of what the district's future appears to have in store. So we just wanted to come back one time and just show this very graphic representation of where the district was in 2011-12 with 12,539 students. This is projected enrollment for this year, which is the 87-83. And then looking into the 26-27 school year, dropping down to the 66-03. And really, again, the purpose of this slide is just to remind us that we are in a real problem situation. We have a huge problem facing us right now, and certainly no enviable task that you guys have in trying to make decisions about what to do to deal with this from a practical and a financial basis for the district. But once more, just wanted to give that to you so you could really get a graphic feel for the impact of the problem that we have facing the district right now. And then the next slide is one that you've actually seen in a couple of different slides previously, and just kind of we gathered those to put them into one slide. And this is kind of talking about, it's talking about the need to take the next steps. I touched on that just really briefly before I started the presentation, and I'm going to go back and really kind of drill down on this a little bit right now. The time is right for us to start having site-specific conversations. We understand that there's a lot of background information that has to be gathered. We think that you guys have asked us a lot of great questions. We've done our best to give you good answers to the questions that you've posed to us. But now we need to start talking about specific recommendations. And we don't have to make decisions tonight, but we do need to start talking about sites and saying, what about this site? What about this site? And having feedback, to get feedback from everyone with regards to the ideas that the committee members might have. And once we have the recommended sites, of course, we'll take the next steps, which are to develop our repurposing option list. And when I talk about that, what I'm saying is that we'll start talking about, okay, now if this were a site that we were going to recommend for action, how would we reuse it? I mean, the true meaning of the word repurposing. What would we do? What would be a good reuse of this site? You know, would it be one that might best be sold? Would it be one that might be best reinvented in some new way? There was a couple of really good suggestions that came out in discussion last week. Senior Center being one of those. So there's community use options that might be out there. There's other district use options that would be out there. We need to start talking about those things. And once we start really focusing on specific schools and areas, because each school and area is going to have potentially its own very unique set of repurposing options that would be associated with it. Then, of course, once we get to that, then we go to the next step, which is to finalize those options. And then once we get there, we can start doing the development of our draft report for the Board of Education, which, again, as I said before, unfortunately, I mean, guys, I mean, let's be honest. We've been given a task that is difficult in the best of circumstances, and we have had a short period of time to get it done. I think we have people here, obviously, who know how to take on this challenge, and you guys have so far done a great job of it. We just need to keep the momentum going and start taking the next steps to get to that point where we're ready to present to the board on the 13th of May. And then the last slide, again, one that you've seen before, which is the calendar. Renee and I went through this, and we made some qualitative decisions that we wanted to share with you tonight. We heard what you said about the number of meetings. We understand about the overlap with other meetings that are out in the real world happening as we're trying to accomplish our mission. So what we've done here is try to simplify it a little bit, stay within our timelines, but prepare some suggestions for you from a calendar perspective that we think will work. Of course, that starts with tonight, where we're at our meeting tonight and having a great time. And then on March the 4th, next week, take to heart the things that we talk about tonight. Again, thinking that tonight we can start having discussions that are specific to individual sites, and then next week really dig deeper into those sites and start talking about the viability they may have in our process. March the 10th was going to be was not a meeting date, but we needed to be able to find a time to have the first what we were calling town halls previously. Now we again heard what you guys said there and about how that really didn't fit with what we were working on, so we changed those to community forums. So we'd like to propose that on March the 10th, that's a Wednesday night, that we would get together and try to have the first of the community forums. Of course, on the 11th, we have our next board meeting where Renee and Natalie, I see Natalie's got her hand up, will be giving a presentation, or excuse me, a report to the board on our progress. March 18th, again, assuming that we've had the opportunity to do the kind of work we need to do on March the 4th and March the 10th, we'll start talking about preparing the draft report and what will be contained in that and what you guys want to see in that coming forward. And then again, March 25th, looking at that date as the possibility of a date, the possible date for the second community forum, where we kind of wrap this up for the community and say to them, these are the things that we're thinking about and the things that we will be most likely bringing back to the Board of Education for review. April the 1st, taking all the information that we've gotten, putting it into some kind of a readable, viable format that everybody can get their arms around and have discussions as a committee regarding the draft report. And then April 15th, our goal is to try to have that draft report available to the board to review as an information item only. So what we want to do that night is bring the draft report to the board, give them a chance to review it, give them a chance to ask us questions, to suggest changes if they feel they're necessary. And then from there, take the next 3 weeks and put together the final report that we share with the board for their action. And so that's it for slides for tonight. I will say, if I could go back just for a second to, whoops, where am I? There we go. Talking again here about, the start of identification of sites. There's focus that we can have as we start talking about which sites might have potential for action again. And there's some of the things that we'd want you to think about, or consider as litmus test options as you're thinking about sites, or things like sites that are currently most underused. And they're looking at things that are the largest disparities between enrollment and seating capacities in the current version of the site's student populations. And then moving forward from there, going of course from today's world into what we anticipate for the future, and making that same kind of comparative analysis. And again, this is what you've seen in our slide that we talked about earlier today, slide 3. Something that's come up during our administrative discussions on this is charter proximity. And Renee used the Chavez location as a good example for me the other day. Well, if you take a look at where Chavez sits, it's bounded by 2 charter organizations. We could reasonably, I think, anticipate that if Chavez was a site that we decided to recommend for action, that we might see a real dispersal of kids out of that site and into the charter locations because of their proximity. It's certainly something to consider. Program offerings, Renee talked about schools of choice. We don't want to really upset that apple cart. I don't think we need to upset that apple cart, even though the demographer showed their enrollments the rest of the traditional schools, calendar schools and operational schools, trended down. The reality of those schools probably is that their enrollments will stay high throughout the course of time because of the type of program that they offer. Then something we've already talked about more than one time, cost of operations versus enrollment. We see that again tonight in our slides tonight, and have seen that previously in other slides. And then finally, repurposing potential. And this goes back to what I talked about a few minutes ago. Some sites may have repurposing potential that is greater or different or more advantageous or more feasible and viable than other sites. And this is something that you as community members are you're really going to have the best handle on as we go forward. And so we'd want you to think about that too as one of the criteria that you might use as you're thinking about what sites to bring to the table for the group to discuss. So with that, again, I'll finish up my slide presentation. As Renee said, we're more than happy to open everything up to questions.
Yes, and I will add, we will not discuss the calendar until the end. We have that as a separate item. So let's keep the discussion to the data points that were shared and the questions and comments that Mr. Hand shared with the group. I think Natalie, you had your hand up first, and then Brenda, and then Jocelyn.
I do want to say thank you for this updated presentation because it is easier to follow. And I do have a question. So are we like making these decisions and only considering looking at like the updated admin utility cost per student for 2021, the 26-27, or because one thing I see missing here, and I don't know if it would affect it or not, is like the sites that have long-term cost, because some of them have millions in long-term cost. And are we not looking at that at all when making these decisions, or are we considering that? I just want to know, like, if we're not kind of why that's not a part of it, like looking at the facilities that need a lot of long-term cost.
Can you clarify in terms of the long-term cost? Are you referring to
like the 2018 that facilities need, like it was done in June, I think it was at the June 14th, 2018 board meeting when they looked at like to run certain schools, like for the cost for repairs and different things like that. Cause there's some schools that had like for long-term repairs, it would have cost millions of dollars. And so I like, for me that that's concerning, like if that's something that like needs to be looked at when kind of looking at sites, because I know we're focusing on like the enrollment, but what about like for some of those like programs that, you know, there might be high enrollment, but maybe to keep that site going just based on maintenance, like on the cost for repairs and different things, like have we considered, because I don't see it in here, like looking at moving them to other sites that don't have so much cost to upkeep or to fix? Because some of them might not even have some of the short term, but their long term cost, it was millions of dollars.
Yeah, and Natalie, if you'll, first of all, Renee keeps calling me Mr. Hand. It's art. Anytime everybody says Mr. Hand, I look around the room to see if my dad's in the room with me. So to answer your question, or at least partially answer it, we really need, and I don't have it here in front of me right now, but if you go back, and I want to say it was either in the slide set that was a part of the first meeting or the second meeting, we actually had a slide that included the utility costs. And what I did was, and when I prepared that, I recognized that the needs assessment had been created in 2018. And so I reached forward to look at this time period in relationship to the 2018. And then I captured those costs from the report, and I brought those forward on the chart. And you're right, it was millions and millions of dollars. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you'll go back and take a look at, and I do believe it was the slides from the second meeting. Take a look at those. You'll see that we do have that there. I think that may help you answer the questions that you have in your head right now regarding the maintenance costs.
Okay, yeah, because I was just looking, it was like the, the 20-year, where is it right here? The, like a summary of the 20-year cost and stuff. And like,
Right.
there's some sites that are close to 10 million or some that are almost like 15 million. And if we're looking at over the course of 5 years to have to cut sites, is that something, that we're looking at as even relocating programs, because if some sites have really, really like lots of like money that needs to go into repairing or keeping them going. I mean, that's concerning for me.
Right, and you certainly need, and you need to use that as one of your litmus tests. And again, that's why I would direct you back to that chart that we put together earlier on in our meeting sets, and take a look at that. And again, I picked, as we've had to do through a lot of this, you kind of have to pick a benchmark, because you could go out and you can say, well, 5 years from now it's this, and 10 years from now there's 20 years from now it's this, and lots of things change, and as we go forward in time in terms of the cost of maintenance and repair for school sites. So we picked a point in time, which, like I said, was really in today's world, so that we could give you an idea, a representative idea of what each of the schools were facing in terms of their projected major maintenance costs or capital improvement costs going forward. So once more, I'd recommend that you go back, take a look at that, and if that doesn't answer all your questions, then you hit the nail on the head a minute ago too. And that's go back to the district's website, where the facility needs assessment is on the website, and go back and take a look at what you've got there on a site-by-site basis. The beauty of the folks that put it together, they have a really great report format where you can almost create your own, well, to a certain extent, can create your own custom reports. So you could go back and take a look at that, and you could play with the numbers a little bit, and that might help you answer the questions that you have in your mind. But the bottom line is, the answer to the question is yes. Ongoing maintenance costs, capital improvement costs should be one of the focus areas that you guys have as you're looking to make recommendations. And we provided you a little bit of that information, but all of that information is out there for you to review on the district's website.
So for this, are we primarily, to clarify, I guess, are we primarily just looking at like basing these choices are the ones that are in green, and it's on the updated admin utility costs for 2021 to 26-27? Is that kind of where our decision is guided to make on the sites, and not the other type of cost?
Well, Natalie, the final decision about which data sets or which information that's out there that you choose to focus on and give the most credence to and give the heaviest weight to is really up to the committee. We want to give you the things that we think are important. And yeah, I'm going to be candid with you. Having done this for a long time, I think this is the slide you see here, the admin utility costs. Those are a really important component of it, maybe the most important component of it. Not that the long-term maintenance costs aren't. But in the district's case, the beauty of what you have in front of you is that you do have bond money that could be used to address certain capital outlay issues, even some maintenance issues going forward. There are other state programs that are coming available right now, as a matter of fact, to help deal with classroom air quality, air conditioning, the provision of air conditioning in classrooms, so we can get air quality standards up to a certain level, so that we can help fight off the menace of COVID. So, and again, not that the long-term, not that to minimize the importance of the long-term maintenance and capital improvement costs, at each site and its value in your analysis. But yeah, if you're asking me from my personal perspective, yeah, I look at this as the key, because these are the costs that you're going to incur every year. You have to have a principal, and some sites have to have vice principals depending on contract. Some you have to have clerks, you have to have secretaries, you have to have custodians. So these are the costs that are more fixed, and because they're more fixed, and because these folks have to be there, we can't operate a school. These are the ones that we choose to look at right now. We're proposing that you look at least at this time as a comparative analysis. Start doing your comparative analysis.
I do want to point out, Natalie and the rest of the group, and before we asked Ms. Zendejas for her comments or questions, is that in this slide, you also have projected enrollment, right? So I don't want us to say, okay, in this, the only thing that's taken into account is the admin costs, right? What you also see that's very glaring in the group of schools there is the projected enrollment and the decline from 2021 to 2026, right? And that's part of the reason, or the big significant reason, why you have that group of schools below that green line. Natalie, we'll come back to you, but
Okay.
I do want to allow others to comment and ask questions. So Ms. Zendejas, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I had a couple questions. First, I want to thank you for adding the special ed program. I think that was really important to me. I do want some clarification on this. So I know it's COE Center and then programs. Are these county programs?
The
county
COE,
centers, right?
yes, correct. The COE, that's the county program, and those are the center at McCollum, right?
Mhm.
There's an actual building there. And the COE programs, these are the county programs that are offered at these two other sites.
The resource centers, are they included here? The ones that are funded by the Santa Clara County? Are any of these programs in this list? Because I don't think they are. I thought I had asked, because there's some programs that are funded, like Family Resource Center to the Santa Clara County, right? And I want to know what the cost is if, for example, they stop funding these programs. Are we paying it as a district?
The Family Resource Centers are not tied to special ed.
Okay, so we don't have this data in here though, right?
No, because they're not tied to special ed.
Okay.
So and the Family Resource Centers are being funded by not the Santa Clara County of Education. They're funded by partly funded by the county, itself, Santa Clara County.
Yeah, because I heard that some of that was going to be pulled out and we were going to be paying those costs. So that would be something I would want to see. I thought I said it last time. Maybe I didn't communicate that well.
Yeah, maybe that got lost, but we do have a Family Resource Center at Chavez, so that everybody knows. We have a Family Resource Center at Curitin. We have a Family Resource Center at Hubbard, and the other lucky Family Resource Center is at Painter,
right?
I believe. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, because that would be a cost for the district if those stop being funded by the Santa Clara County. Right.
Can I ask a quick question, guys? Just to interject for a second. So, if for some reason any of those sites were chosen for you by you guys as an action site, would there be possibility that the Family Resource Center, the program that's being funded by the county, that could be shifted to another site, or are those centric and positioned at those schools because that's where you've got the demographic draw?
That was my next question. Thank you.
Those things are.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to jump in.
Nope.
Yeah, and I don't want to derail the conversation too much here, but those resource centers can definitely be redirected elsewhere. And we were trying to be strategic and making sure that we had them at the different sides of the district. But whether a site there would be chosen to be repurposed, those services and programming could definitely be redirected elsewhere. That's the same case for the music program and special ed programs, right? We want to make sure that we're still offering high quality programming for all of our students. So any of these programs that may be impacted would simply be redirected to another site.
Okay, and then that was one of my questions. And then my other question is there a possibility we could do a metric of 5 to 7 factors so we can measure each school by that and not, and I think that would be more fair process if we have 5 to 7 things that we can pinpoint that are important for us to make these decisions. It could be ADA, long-term cost, short-term cost, detailed cost of admins. I don't know, whatever we choose to have and make this decision a lot easier and more transparent if we have about 5 to 7 factors to choose from. If everybody is okay to having this, I would love for that to be, instead of just like naming one school and everybody just throwing schools. I think having a metric system to go through and looking at schools to check off those 5 to 7 factors would help a lot. Then I had one more. And that was it, actually. I'm going to keep the other one.
That's a good point. And I think Art shared with you guys some of those key elements that we should be looking at. And we could put them in writing somewhere as we look at this, right? We talked about proximity. We talked about enrollment. We talked about programming. So there was about 5 to 6 elements that Art shared with you, and we could definitely share those in writing with you to help continue to guide the conversation. Jocelyn.
Thank you. I have several questions and a couple of comments. I think the more we get into it, the more stressful it becomes and the more complicated it becomes. One of the questions, in going through these slides earlier today, and some of this may not make any change to any outcome whatsoever, but I was curious as to why Painter was not counted as a school of choice, since basically it does have its own, it's a dual language school. And also all of our schools are open for, if you want to go to another school in the district, they are all considered, you have that choice, correct?
You can ask for an interdistrict transfer. You're right as far as Painter. That was just simply an oversight on our part. It is a new program that we just started, right? And if you recall, the reason why I was referencing these schools as schools of choice, because that's originally how they started, right? These were small schools of choice, right? And that was the distinction that we were putting there in comparison to the rest of the traditional schools.
Well, and originally Adelante 2 was not one of those. So, it's like, it needs to be the same playing field, however we're going to determine. Not that it matters, because if I remember correctly at the last meeting, I asked specifically if there were any schools that were off limits or that were out of the contention for being considered. Mm-hmm. And it's my understanding that there weren't any. I also heard tonight Art mention that we don't want to upset the apple cart when it comes to the schools of choice. However, any apple cart that's affected is going to be upset. And so I think that is something that we need to keep in mind when whatever decisions we do make, that whatever one is affected, it's going to upset the students and the community from that area. One of my questions though is, in looking at the slide, actually the one that's there right now, slide 3, where it says the admin and utility costs, I'm curious as to if we're talking about possibly consolidating schools, why the utility cost wasn't separated out, because that would be a cost that would remain at a site if schools were consolidated, correct? You wouldn't have the principal or the VP or the SIM, you wouldn't have a need for 2 health assistants or 2 community liaisons or the other ones, but the utility costs would remain the same, wouldn't it?
That's correct.
No, I'm sorry, Renee, I'm going to jump in
Go
just for a
ahead.
second. And Jocelyn, that's one of those yes and no answers. So you would have potentially utility costs that would remain, because you're going to want to keep a certain amount of heat going in the classrooms, during the winter time. You're probably not going to air condition the classrooms in the summertime, and you would keep the lights off if there's nobody there. So you will have a minimum amount of utility costs that would stay with the site if it was an action site, if it was repurposed, but your utility costs are going to go down significantly. And you're right, the personnel side, the admin side would move away substantially, if not totally, depending on how it's repurposed. But what you've got here, guys, what we did here was to say, again, talking about benchmarks, and this is what we needed to do. We needed to provide you with a benchmark. Once we start to dig deeper into, okay, if it's this site, what do we do, and what do we do with this site when it's repurposed? How is it repurposed? Then we start talking about, okay, then do we have latent utility costs that remain? Do we have latent maintenance and operations costs that remain? If it stays with the district, then the district will have an expense for that site to some certain level. But for the purposes of what we're doing right now, we don't really have any way to calculate that, because we don't know how that site would be reused once it was part of our items for action.
Right. So I understand.
Again, what you got here is just this is benchmark stuff. So you guys can start to get a feel for what's out there and start to use that again to formulate decisions.
So then I guess that leads me to another question is, are we not considering consolidating any sites? Isn't that also one of the options that's on the table?
You brought it up, Jocelyn, and I think that was the piece. Jocelyn was specifically talking about Fisher, Matson, Fisher, and Renaissance, right?
And actually, I wasn't specifically, but those are some that are possible consolidations, but
no,
yeah.
In terms of the facilities, right? And you were talking about if those sites were consolidated, right? The facilities, the utilities costs would remain. So I just want to make sure there's no confusion there. That was the specific point that you made, right, regarding those, and the utilities costs for the most part, right? If that were to happen, some of those utilities costs, most of those would remain. But yeah, that is something that you guys are going to have to consider, right? We're engaging everybody. Yeah,
I'm sorry, Renee, and just to speak specifically to Fisher and Masson and the Renaissance programs, when we broke this up for this slide, we did take a look at the utility costs overall, and then we assigned those on a shared basis between the 2 programs. So as an example, with Renaissance, if Renaissance stayed on campus and only occupied the spaces that it currently occupies and only had the administrative staff that it currently has, the Renaissance 1 Academy, that 591, 194 would be the anticipated cost going forward for that site.
Okay. So another question that I have, and I will try to be quick. I know that there's a lot of other people here that have questions, but and I just lost it. If we're going to try to, we're looking at a $7.8 million deficit that we're trying to close, if I remember correctly. but I'm hoping that we're not planning, that we're not looking to make that deficit based solely on this committee of closing or consolidating schools. Because looking at the numbers that I see, if that was the case, we'd be looking at more like closing 10 schools this year, right? Based on the operating costs that have been provided. So we're not looking at closing the $7.8 million specifically with this action, any action that this group takes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll jump in just for a second, Renee. And as I understand it, Jocelyn, you're correct that we're not looking to that. Right? So right now, what we've talked about, at least preliminarily, is just taking a look at the base numbers. If we could do 3 to 4 sites, I think we talked about this early on in the process. If we could get 3 to 4 sites this year and then come back and start to, we talked about master planning for the rest of the sites. There is an anticipation that 9 sites, 10 sites might need to be closed over the course. And if the enrollment projections continue to slope down as they have been and as they're projected to do, that over the course of the next 5 to 6 years, we would have to see the remainder of these sites, remainder of that number of sites, excuse me, not these sites, not anything we've chosen because we haven't chosen, but the remainder of that number of sites. So if we got 3 this year, if we decided on 3 and that was good, there would be another 6 or so that we would have to master plan into a scheme moving forward over the next 5 to 6 years, because the district's overall shortfall would require that kind of action.
So with that in mind, I think we also need, when we look at projected enrollment, I know that it's been based on specific things, but I don't know that we would actually know the impact that closing schools are going to have on projected enrollment on other school sites moving
Correct.
forward. Like if school X was closed this year, it may totally change projected enrollment for school Y for the next 5 years, but we won't know that. So all that we have is what it will be for next year, basically.
Right, and that's a great point. You hit the nail squarely and directly on the head. The actions that we take this year will have trickle-down effect going forward, and we don't know what that is, and we can speculate. I know you guys have done a great job of having some very preliminary discussions about those things. It comes back to this idea of the charter school draw, and the drain that the charter schools bring, and how will the closure of any facilities, how will that be addressed in that regard, and what will happen there? So as an example, those are the kind of things we don't know. That's why it's wise to take it slow right now. And I know that it's hard to envision probably the idea that, hey, if you're going to close 3 or 4 sites this year, that's slow. But when you have the potential for 9 or 10 to have an impact and need to have an impact on your budget situation, starting with 3 to 4 is a wise move. And then you can take a look at this going forward. And once more, we can start to build the outcomes into the master planning for the remainder of the facilities that might need to be addressed later on.
Thank you.
Edgar, I think Edgar had his hand up, and then Ms. Tran.
Sorry, Renee. No, I lowered my hand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Tran?
Yeah, so my question is, in the projected enrollment, is there a formula that incorporated inter-district transfers? Because schools that are in the border of Alum Rock, for example, might have more inter-district transfers, and then also the school of choices that are highlighted can also bring in more. Was that piece projected in the projected enrollment?
Ms. Tran, if you go back and again, take a look at the demographic study, you'll see that your demographers did take that into some account. Generally speaking, they anticipated that draw from outside the district would be pretty static going forward, because we can't we can't have the same kind of anticipation and mathematical anticipation for those kids that we can have for the students that come from within our boundaries. So they did take that into an account, but the primary focus of what you see here and the work that they did appears to have really been centered on district enrollment, the children that they could grab and capture from within the district's boundaries.
I see. I'm just wondering, like, for example, a border school, I believe Chavez is a border, like pretty close to another district border. How much, like what percentage of enrollment in this projected enrollment was students who are in the actual district compared to students that are coming from outside? You know, just curious.
I believe that generally speaking, the children that you see here, the 87, 88, 83, are children that are essentially coming from within the district's boundaries. We can go back and take a look at that in the demographic study, but I do believe that's generally how it was formulated.
Okay, and then my second question is in terms of the FRCs. I know earlier that was mentioned really briefly, but if it were to be one of the sites that were repurposed, which currently houses an FRC, would it be possible for the FRC to like be still housed there, and that would be the purpose of that school or that location? Is that not a possibility?
That's the reason why we're having these discussions, right? Because these are some of the ideas and thoughts that individuals are sharing in terms of the best use of facilities that are being considered for repurposing. So that's could definitely be a consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
I took all the data that we had as of yesterday, and I put together a proposal that I thought would be useful to share with the committee, and maybe as a starting point, or at least to kick the conversation in the direction of which schools.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for me to share that, my screen?
Let me stop my share, Ray. Okay, there you go.
You can do it. Do people see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So first, I thought we should close Chavez, move the 168 students, 168 of the students to San Antonio and 100 of them to Dorsa. And the savings in the three categories of maintenance, admin, utility, and operational are there off the charts. And if we close Lindale, we move 294 students to a total of 294 students, 134 to Curtin, 80 to Ryan, and 80 to Russo, and saving all those costs. And if we close Matheson, we move the 276 Renaissance students to the Fisher Renaissance program and 214 non-Renaissance students to Fisher, closing that facility and saving those costs. And that gives us the total savings that are listed there, which exceed the $7-point-whatever-it-was-million operational savings. That was our charter, was to save 7-point-something in operational costs. We'd save about $9 million in operational savings, neglecting for a moment any secondary effects that might happen as we move people around.
Right, right.
Also, I thought that maybe in the future we would need to close Ocala or Shepherd because as the enrollment continues to decline, we just have too many middle schools. And I was wondering, Arbuckle School is on the map, but it's not on the spreadsheets. I'm not sure what happened there. And the student attendance matrix is missing some schools, and the number of students for Adelante don't agree with some of the other charts. But anyway, there's kind of a straw man to throw it out there and say, here's a way we can get to and exceed our $7 million goal.
Ray, would it be possible for you to email this to to Renee or to Colvera's assistant, Patricia?
Certainly.
So we could share this with everybody after the meeting, so we can push this out to everybody.
Certainly, I'll share that after the meeting.
Great, thank you. And these are all great ideas. You hit the nail on the head a minute ago, and we've talked about this already tonight. You're right. The base savings looks great. We would have some bleed off of costs as we move students into other sites. There'll be utility burdens and things like that that would come along with the kids, but we would have an avoidance potentially of the admin costs, and we certainly could have an avoidance on the maintenance side.
Thank you for sharing this, Ray. This is, it's a discussion starter, right? And we do need to look at these numbers really hard. I think if you look at the slide deck that Art shared with you, I think what keeps me coming back to the focus, right, is that sharp decline, right? There's no way around it. I mean, we've lost over 4,000 or 5,000 students over the last 8 years, and we're projected to lose another 4,000 students, or another 2,000 students in the next 4 years, right? And so there's just no way around the fact that the number of facilities, the number of classrooms don't correlate with the number of students that we currently have. Anybody else want to? I see Brandy. And then, yes, Brandy, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yes. I was actually doing some of the math myself, and I also wanted to say that I came up with Chavez and Lindale, but instead of Matson, I actually came up with Fisher, based on some numbers that of course, there's room for error, but I thought that keeping Fisher open over Matson was actually costing more. So I just wanted to put that I was also looking at the same schools.
Randy, could you give me, I got math, and which other two schools were you considering?
Chavez and Lindale.
Chavez, thank you.
Matson, I did not want to, I was not trying to throw that one out there. I was actually looking at Fisher, which was the opposite of what the last gentleman just said.
Right.
So I just want to say, I looked at the numbers, and Fisher actually seemed to be more costly to keep open than Matson was, unless I looked at something wrong.
And I will share the only, just as a informational piece regarding Chavez, and Art did allude to this earlier. The interesting thing with Chavez is that it's in the neighborhood, surrounded by 2-3 charter schools, and as the group has shared earlier, there's the worry that, okay, if that school were to be closed, where would they automatically go? There's literally a charter school on the Chavez campus that some of those students may opt to go to, right? And I think part of the concern there would be that these students would have a much easier option to attend some of these charter schools rather than going elsewhere. So just a piece of information for you guys, and just the history behind Chavez and the Chavez neighborhood and Cesar Chavez. Those are pieces that I'd share with the group.
Right, and as we talked about, guys, it's the tangible, which are the things like what Ray presented it to us here, and Brandy, what you're talking about right now, and then the intangibles, are the rest of the equation that we have to talk about and consider moving forward.
Okay, Jocelyn.
Just a quick question based on what Ray has proposed here. In general, this is saying moving 168 students to where the students would go. However, in reality, if a school is closed, those students are going to have the option to go to whatever school they choose, correct? Just like Arbuckle did when they closed. So they may not necessarily fit into neat little packages like that throughout the district.
Right.
I mean, that is the way it will be, correct?
They would have options.
They would have options. So we can't say,
But
if we close this school, you're going here. Okay,
there
just
would
checking.
be, I'm assuming, guys, too, though, that there would be an attendance area boundary shift. That would have to be a redraw. That would have to be done as a part of this at some point. So that might dictate some of the movement as we move forward and provide us some guidance there going forward.
And there's not going to be any transportation provided. We've got to assume that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Zendejas?
Yeah, I had some comments with some of the schools that they chose. I know the Matson has a huge homeless problem around that area, and I don't know how safe that would be if there's no transportation being provided for a lot of these families and parents. Possibly don't drive. Chavez, I noticed that they have two music programs, or not music. Is it music? Yeah, I believe it's band, right? Which is an advanced level. And again, Chavez is surrounded by a lot of, I think it's one charter school or two. And it's in the heart of a neighborhood as well that is a very low income neighborhood. Fisher, I did notice they had 3 county programs that I had a question about. Are they paying the district money for these 3 programs? Can these programs be moved? And looking at all the schools, I think that there's so many things that, like I said, I think we need a metric. I think we need to establish a metric system of what are the things that we're looking at, so we can go and maybe during this week start checking and seeing and making sure that we don't choose by what we think, but by what the metric says, but what we put, because we can't put our feelings into this. We have to be strategic on what truly is going to save the district money, or what's going to hurt in the long run. So we have to look at also intra transfers. If there's a lot of intra transfers in certain schools, that means that this school, people want it. There's a reason why people are transferring to these schools, and we need to see what those programs are as well, and if they could survive in the cost of building as well. So these are some of the things that I think we should look at. I think we really do need a metric system, so we could all be on the same page. But those are some of the things I saw with these schools. In Lindo as well, I know that it's heavy apartment area, and I know that it's a VAPA school. So these are some of the things that I believe that I said personally that I'm looking at, because I'm also looking at staff and cost per school. And I still need a lot more time to look into all these things to make a choice of schools.
Yeah.
So I can't throw any schools, but I do want to try to establish a metric system by today if we could.
Okay. And we could definitely come back to that. And as I shared, Art did share a few things. I will also redirect you to the study that we have on the website, because that also shows you the transfers outside of the district. So that information is there as well. So as you gather your thoughts and your perspectives around considerations, definitely I would recommend that everyone review that data as well. It's hard for us to go through every single piece of data here, but if you guys can reference back to some of those pieces for our future meetings, that would be helpful as well. Natalie.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I feel like no matter what site closes, it's like every there's always going to be some type of impact, no matter which site it's going to be. And, you know, like every site has something very special about it, especially for that neighborhood. And like with certain programs, there are programs that no matter what, they're always going to have that need and want. And so if some programs moved, they're still going to have, there's still always going to be that want for that program because of certain things it offers. One thing, because I was looking at mileage, like for, it was mentioned about Chavez, there are a lot of charter schools, but San Antonio is a shorter distance compared to Rocket Ship. So I don't know if I know that, you know, like districts have like mileage, like if you're going from site to site, like, is there anything that shows like the mileage from sites to the charter schools? I mean, that might not be, that might not exist, but that might be something to look at. Because when you look at the map, some of the charter schools look closer to the school, to a school site than another school site, but actually the other school site might end up being closer.
You know, Natalie, I'm going to go back to what Renee said a second ago. We're picking the maps you're seeing on the presentations. I'm picking those up out of the demographic study, and I'm inserting them into the slides. And so the measurements are not necessarily field accurate. So again, I would go back and I'd recommend that you go back to demographic study and take a look at the maps in the study, because those are more regulated. Those are more regulated, and you might have it might give you a better feel for proximities between existing schools and existing traditional schools and existing charters.
Yeah, I guess the point I was trying to make is when you look at that map visually, you're like, you know, like, oh, this charter looks really close to this school. But then when you put in the numbers, you're like, actually, it's farther than, like, for example, like Chavez. Rocket Ship looks a lot closer than San Antonio does, but San Antonio is closer to Chavez. So some of those numbers are more like, I think it's important though to look at numbers, because it was mentioned about the, you know, like we're all like about the charter schools being close to some of the other sites. And if those get closed, we might lose students, but then it might look that way on that map. But then when you do the mileage, it's not.
Yeah. That's a good point, Natalie. And one thing that I'll add to that would be that even as you look at that distance, that isn't always the determining factor. You also have major cross streets that parents would rather walk an extra 2 blocks rather than cross major streets. And this is just from my own experience at the various sites that I've worked at. You know, parents would be more willing to walk, 2-3 blocks down if they didn't have to cross a major street, right? A major cross street. So those are also things to consider as we look at the location of the different sites. Yeah, and we'll see if we have anything that specifies that information.
Thank you.
Okay, we can come back to this. I'm going to open it up for public comments. I think we have 1 or 2 hands up. I don't see anybody else from our group commenting, so I will open it up to, I see Miss Delia Oseguera Navarro.
Okay, hi. I'm just looking at this thing, and it's been mentioned, there's no guarantee that all the students who, if these schools do close, end up staying in Alum Rock, and I think the numbers need to be considered. I don't know what formula should be used, or based on for students leaving the Alum Rock School District as a whole, whether it's charter or private or whatever, or homeschooling, because now a lot of parents are now into homeschooling. And the second thing I want to add to this is if Cesar Chavez does get closed, don't be surprised if there's a community outcry because of it, because it is Cesar Chavez, is named after Cesar Chavez, and this is his neighborhood. And even though there is a low enrollment, people from outside of the area will say, well, no, they're closing the school, Cesar Chavez. So it's to be considered, maybe renaming another school, maybe down the line, but just to have that in consideration for that possible outcry to happen if Cesar Chavez does end up closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica Amador.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you to the commissioners for the great questions and to Art for bringing the presentation. And I know that in the moving forward, and it might not necessarily be something that this repurposing committee can do, but maybe can advocate on having a plan on how can we recruit students moving forward. And what does that plan look like? And, you know, and I feel like as parents, you know, we can advocate as well, right? Like letting our neighbors know. I feel like we have so many great programs, great, amazing teachers, and a lot of our students might be missing out from that. And so, again, it might not be something that this committee does. However, maybe it's something that as a committee can advocate as we move forward. What are the next steps, or what is going to be that plan of having a plan of how we're going to be recruiting and keeping students, especially recruiting, I think, because we do have like head starts in our schools, like Linda Vista. There's a Cadango there, and I know that they have pre-K students that are going into, you know, they have like 2 classrooms that are going into kinder next year, and there's about maybe 60 students, a little bit more, right? And so how are we getting to them, and how are we reaching out to them to making sure that they're coming to our schools, because we know that they come to this facility, they most likely live around the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amador. Mr. Vince Iwasaki.
Good evening. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the clarifications in the data. I think this makes it easier to determine a way forward. The decline in enrollment's clear, and I know that fiscally a loss of 1/3 of our student population has to impact our facilities. I appreciated Natalie's observation that every site has something special, and that just makes the job of this committee that much harder. And I appreciated the work, the hard work and thoughtfulness that have gone into Ray's and Brandy's proposals. Having these conversations is never easy, and I just wanted to thank the committee for the work they're putting in.
Thank you. Winnie? She?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of comments. If we can get the slide deck, it seems like the committee members all have it and you're able to follow along. And I know in the past it was posted on the website on the day of the meeting so that the rest of us can follow along. So if we're able to get a copy or have that link, that would be great so that we can just follow along, see what you guys are talking about. The second thing was, and it was commented last time as well, that there are some Verizon Innovative Learning schools. And I know at least on the Renaissance campus, and I don't know about the rest of them, there is a brand new technology center that is built there. And someone can provide clarification, but I think we're bound to a 3-year contract with Verizon for having this brand new tech center built. And I had a chance to see it this year. None of my kids did because no one's in school, but I walked in and it's fully equipped, brand new everything. So I don't know what is allowed in terms of tearing the school down, but I believe there's a 3-year contract for that. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're right, we do have our tech labs and our partnership with Verizon. We have that at Ocala, we have that at Shepherd and at Renaissance, as well as Fisher Renaissance, yeah. Anyone else? let's see. Miss Kretovics. Hope I said that correctly. If I
Yeah,
did,
thank you. Sorry, I'm on my work account. You can call me Sarah though.
Sarah.
I just want to say I appreciate the recalculated numbers because it did change some of the numbers and the percentages of the 2021 utilization by quite a bit. And I think that those numbers are important to be accurate. So I do really appreciate that. I do have some other questions I'll email later, but I did want to quickly mention, I know that when we closed, like we have closed a couple schools since I've been in the district, and when we closed, I believe the last time we closed a middle school, it was Paula. And I do feel like there were some complications when we closed Paula, just with navigating to make sure that those students had like safe paths to walk to their new schools. And so I just wanted to put that out there and make sure that that's something that the committee is also going to consider, especially with middle school students, because they're often walking to school by themselves.
Thank you for that. Okay, I don't see any more public comment, but I do see Mr. Gudiel. Go ahead, Mr. Gudiel.
My question might be for Ray Turner, since he's sharing the screen. Where were those maintenance costs pulled from for each of those sites?
There was a chart in the presentation that we got on February 4th called Identified Maintenance Costs. And the last column says immediate facility repair needs. So that's where they came from.
Okay, very well. So this next comment, and Colvera and Renee could probably shed some more light on this. Whenever we make an MOU with any leased properties, typically the major maintenance repairs still fall on the district. So I think that's something that we will have to take into consideration, that if we do repurpose these school sites and or lease them out to other entities, if the MOUs are going to be going to have the same sort of language that we currently use with other entities, then there's not going to be much of a maintenance savings cost, especially for some of the major ticket items on that. And again, Colvera can correct me if I'm wrong. So I just want to make sure that that's also taken into consideration when looking at those maintenance dollars there.
Thank you for that. I don't know if Colvera is there and if he would like to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I'm here, Mr. Sanchez. Yeah, and the short answer, it depends, right? Because most of our lease agreement are with charter schools who are utilizing our facilities. Depending on who we lease it to, those terms can change on a case-by-case basis. So, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. So, but those terms are not locked in for every situation.
Thank you.
Colvera.
Thank you for that. Any other comment? If not, I would at this moment, just so that we try to stick to the agenda and on time. The other item is on repurposing considerations, right? And this is just a continuation of the conversation that we've started around some of the things that, not just the locations, right? But the ideas, the concepts of how could these facilities be repurposed as we look at, you know, options moving forward. And I'll open it up to the group, to the committee first. Okay. Jocelyn, I'll start with you.
Actually, my question is still regarding Ray Turner's presentation.
That's fine.
I just wanted to get clarification in reading it. In the last one, when it was referring to middle schools, Ray, was your intent to move Renaissance at Matson over to Renaissance at Fisher, and those students that are currently at Matson, they would also move over to Fisher, so that basically the Fisher campus would hold the students that currently occupy 4 schools. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Ms. Zendejas?
Hi, I just wanted to share. I quickly did a little metric of some items that we can consider, and one was long-term, short-term, ADA, special ed programs, FRCs, and music programs, and cross streets, major cross streets for the neighborhoods. I don't know if this is something everybody wants to consider or add their own, but these are just my suggestions, and this is still going back to that. And then I'll talk about the repurpose. Can I speak now about it? Some ideas that I got. So I know that I said Matson is predominantly an area where there is a lot of homeless situation. We can consider some of these schools, some of these areas. I'm not saying Matson right now, but some of them could be clinics that can pay a fee to the district, and even maybe some housing for the homeless, for the community, and get that funded. I don't know if that's through the city or through the county. Other ideas that I had was having a senior center, daycare centers, or area where we can host meetings, people can rent, tech centers, etc. Storage, computer lab centers that people could potentially rent either for meeting or after school programs that can come in and use these facilities, and possibly charge our students a sliding scale to make it affordable for the parents on what they make, and we can still get the rent for those buildings. I like the ideas of selling some of the portables to get some income. I don't remember who said that, but that is a great idea to also consider. And those are just some suggestions. So that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe, Edgar, you were next.
Yeah, so just some suggestions, and I'm probably just piggybacking off of Ms. Zendejas. But obviously the ideal situation would be for the district to be able to not just help the community provide resources, but obviously create a stream of revenue at the same time, right? So some of those ideas that Ms. Zendejas had, I would totally be on board with. We would definitely be helping out the community in various needs. And especially if we can partner up with some outside entities, that would definitely bring in some revenue for the school district at the same time through these lease agreements that we touched upon. So I definitely think that would be a great idea. Now, if we could just nail down some actual school sites, we can maybe start tailoring each of those school sites to what the needs are to the specific areas, right? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Natalie?
Yeah, I think looking even at like programming with any like of the colleges or community colleges, or even like a teacher or staff housing so that we can retain staff, since rents are really high or even like low income housing, or even like community centers or art centers, or even like for business and not nonprofits too. Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Yes, those are, I agree with all those suggestions that are in some way trying to use the buildings that we have there in a way that's compatible with what we have, classrooms, for example, and cafeterias and so forth. But I think in the long run, the future seems to be that we're going to have to stop using half the buildings, half the sites for education of our children. And given that, I would just point out that the business of the school district is educating children, not being a property manager. And so while you can be a property manager for a few properties that you think you might need someday, when you know you're not ever going to need these properties again, I think you have to consider selling them off.
Thank you for that. Mr. Gudiel, I'm not sure if you had another comment or you were okay?
No, I did not.
Okay. At this moment, I will open it up for public comments. I don't see the committee members having their hands raised any longer. So
Renee, I think Mr. Randall had his hand up, and also I've been trying to raise my hand, but I don't.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Well, let's start with you, and then we'll turn it over to the community members.
Sure. My suggestion would be, I think in our community in Alum Rock, we have a lot of family members or relatives around this area that are really well known in their trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, in that sort of field. My suggestion is maybe holding some sort of training center or trades camp in these areas that we excel on in our community. And I think I can probably drive down the street and see a few people that are in these trades. And Ray, just to kind of answer your question in terms of using some of our sites and educating our children might be resourceful to kind of help them, in this nature, middle school, kiddos or elementary, if in some way we can kind of cater to that age group to kind of strive some sort of interest, I think would be beneficial.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, with that, I will turn it over to community. And I believe, Mr. Barber, you had your hand raised.
Testing 1, 2, here we go. Musician speaking. Thank you, everybody, for working so hard. It's an agonizing issue. I want to raise the music perspective. We have a reputation for high quality music education in Alum Rock. Goes back 40 years, 50 years, known all over the state. There are some unparalleled programs that we do here. And I just ask everyone, committee and public, to be mindful that the infrastructure needed to support that effort a lot of times is below the normal public's radar. It takes a lot. It's like an iceberg, right? Here's the band up here doing great things. And the iceberg is the support structure that keeps that going. So please bear in mind as you're talking about all these possibilities that what it takes to maintain a strong music program takes secure buildings. The inventory, our inventory is accounts for a lot of money. Mr. Chen can verify that. There's a lot of cost there that needs to be kept safe. And I'm thinking of all the facilities, but the jazz band comes primarily to mind because that's a program that has students, by the time they're gigging, by the time they're performing in January, they're playing junior college level music. Junior college level music, very clear. had many comments from colleagues over the years, and I'm sure Bill Nicolosi's had the same, and Colin and everybody else. When they get our Alum Rock kids to college, they already know how Counterpoint works, all of that. So I'm doing the pitch for the music program, but my point is, for example, with Masson, you've got a facility there. No matter what happens, I'm telling you, that facility has got to retain its integrity somehow, or you're going to need to replace it somehow, because they've got professional level instruments, and that means $12,000 Barry sax, not a $3,000 Barry sax type of thing. And it's a 40-piece band. So please bear that in mind. It's not something where you can just move a puzzle piece over and expect not to have a lot of possibilities for disaster as far as your infrastructure. I implore you to keep that in mind. To a lesser extent, some of the other campuses are in a similar way. We've got to do, if you were to close Fisher, you'd have to do something with those instruments, and it's a very good facility and very secure storage. So please bear that in mind. But I think, honestly, my biggest concern is keeping that jazz band, the recording studio, the professional equipment, just the setup and the storage space makes all of that possible. And if we don't have it, then it's got to happen somewhere else, and that's going to be expensive if you want to keep the program. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak. That was just something that came to mind, and it really needs to be said, so that we don't have any unintended consequences down the road for the music program. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Ms. Veronica Amador.
Great, thank you so much. I also agree with the music. I think my brother and I we all went to Joseph George, and we all learned how to play the drums there, and it was amazing. It really provided us with different, just overall a better education and support system. But I also do love all the ideas you're hearing from everyone in this repurposing committee. However, I do want you all to consider maybe having a few ideas, and how is the rest of the community in Alum Rock going to find out about them, and maybe having a survey to see what the community thinks of what the repurposing ideas that you guys have, and which one would be more impactful as well. Just so there's a community input as well. Thank you.
Sarah, you had your hand up? No? Okay, I will bring it back to the.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute for some reason. I just wanted to, I love all these ideas that are being thrown out there. I wanted to also suggest, like, I know Overfelt has, or has had a health clinic on their campus that provides low cost medical or healthcare for the community. And I feel like that's something that, I don't know if we could mimic that. I don't know if it makes money or not, but just wanted to throw that out there. And then the other thing I wanted to throw out there is, I think with the pandemic and, us being in a very different situation, I wonder if there might be community members that might not feel safe going back to physical school when we do reopen. And so I wanted to see, is there any consideration of potentially having a virtual school in Alum Rock, potentially, and maybe allowing teachers to work out of a physical classroom if they prefer, and just kind of throw that out there as an idea as well.
I will bring it back to the community, to the committee. I know that we had two hands. We'll take one last round of comments, and then we'll bring it back to the calendar. I know we've gone over our time. I know that this is very important, but I do want to respect everyone's time. So, Ms. Zendejas and Brandy, I know that you had your hand up also.
I just got an idea while Mr. Randall was speaking. I know that a lot of people are searching for great music programs. If we could possibly keep a school open and open not only for our district, but for other districts to come in and charge a price per student. This is a wonderful program that has so many accolades. So I know people will come to try to get their kids who possibly came to this district and know what a great program it is. So if we can even put a building just for music and charge, it could be morning and PM program. So you can get revenue on throughout the day. And I love the idea of a training center. I think those centers have been very successful. And I think that right now with less students going to college, I think that a trade center would be something that we can profit off as a district. So I will highly suggest those two ideas for any of the buildings that we repurpose, and a clinic and whatever else I said. And that's all. Thank you.
Oops. Brandy? Brandy?
Yes, got it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say that I loved a lot of these ideas as well. The only idea that I wasn't too fond of was the housing of homeless. I don't want anyone to feel like we would be taking something, you know, a school with integrity in the neighborhood and turning it into something that might be a little less appealing. But as far as music goes, I also love music. When I moved here to the Bay Area, is because Bay Area has such a well reputation in the music industry. It has its own, you know, idea, and I think that it's really good for the children to look up to that and, you know, keep music alive, give them something to positive to do. And as far as someone mentioned the Cesar Chavez name, possibly causing some type of a negative feedback from the neighborhood if something were to happen. So in the event that that did happen, I would like to say a trade school there would be very good as far as relating to what Cesar Chavez was about and helping people succeed who may not necessarily have access to a college or something else like that. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Art, if I can ask you to please share your slide deck again and bring up the calendar, just to remind everyone of next things to consider. Thank you guys. This has been very helpful. I know how difficult this conversation is, but I do appreciate your ideas, your thought, your time, and I know that we'll be able to come up with something that truly makes sense. So the calendar here in front of you, you have next week. We want to continue this conversation and tighten up those recommendations. We are proposing to have a community forum March 10th, and I'd like you to think about that for a second. And I'd like to hear your thoughts. Anybody have any thoughts around the community forum?
Oh, sorry. It's Natalie. I think, you know, when we open the community forum, I think it'd be a good time to kind of get ideas from the community. I mean, I know we have to have, you know, the discussion that there are sites that are going to be closed in a time frame, but I think it might be a good point to kind of get the community involved and open up like what kind of things they would like to see in place of the like repurposing the campuses, like the ideas that we're you know, throwing out tonight about the considerations. I think it would be good to get the community involved on their considerations also during that next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank
for that.
you.
Brenda?
I like the dates. I like that the community forum comes before the board update. I think it's really important to even have our recommendation before all of those things. We've gotten information, not probably all that we need, but we got more information with this meeting. And I think that it could be possible that by February 25th, we could have some recommendations, maybe not all. But I think this is a good start. I like this calendar. I think it's something more feasible that we can do as a committee. And I like May being the board approval final facility. I think that's plenty of time for us to have something.
Thank you.
So I like the calendar.
Thank you for that. Jocelyn.
Yeah, the calendar works for me as well. But I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification because I got a little tense over something that you just said, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
What did I say?
You said, no, when you mentioned, like, I got the feeling that there's only been really one option or one option and a variation of that option brought forth so far. We're not stuck on that, right? That's just the beginning, correct?
It's just the beginning of the conversation.
Okay, got it.
What we will be doing is consolidating the information, the input that you guys gave us, and we'll bring it to our next meeting to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Anyone else with the group regarding the calendar? If everybody's okay, with the adjustments, I would ask that we vote on the calendar, and we'll do it formally, and I'll ask for
Mr. Sanchez,
yes.
before we do that, I just wanted to make a quick comment. The way we're going to be broadcasting this community forum is going to be any different than what we've been currently broadcasting for school board meetings. I think since we are going to be opening this up to the community, we should be going the extra yard. If there's any other creative ways of marketing, community outpour to come into this meeting and not have anybody say, we didn't go the extra yard. It was sent out the similar way everything else is sent out. I think it'd be beneficial for all those, untouched areas, I guess, to really market this.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that just off the top of my head, what we would be doing is we would be putting it out through Parent Square. We would be doing a parent link that goes out to all of our parents, and we would definitely have it posted at our website. So we would try different ways of reaching as many of our parents as possible.
I would also add to that, just utilizing our food distribution programs. There's a lot of families there that go, using that as a source of communication for people to kind of know. For me, it's always been best to physically hear that than virtually sometimes, because it's easy enough to pass over a message or an email of sorts.
Appreciate that. Okay. Brenda, Ms. Zendejas?
I was just going to add to what he said that a flyer, and can we also share in our social media, or would this violate anything if we do our own outreach to, I guess, our public or our followers?
I will check on that piece, right? Because we do remember one of the things that they did share with us, right? That we're bound by the Brown Act, and I want to make sure that we're not overstepping any of those things, okay? But I am taking notes, right? As I shared with you, Parent Link, Parent Square, flyer in the food distribution website, and we'll look at other options as well. Remember, we have next week, so we would hope to be able to put this out no later than middle or end of the week, so it gives people at least a week in advance. Okay. And if you guys have any other thoughts, Patricia is the point of contact, and you guys have my email also. If you have any additional thoughts, I'd be more than happy to look at those possibilities as well. Okay. With that, can I get a motion to adopt the calendar as it's presented to you?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Turner and Ms. Merce with the second. And I'll take a vote here. I'll do a roll call. Brandy Salcido,
Yes.
Araceli Ortiz, Alberto Torres,
Present.
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jocelyn Merce,
Yes.
Brenda Zendejas,
Yes.
Edgar Gudiel,
Yes.
Lee Tran, I think she had to step away. Ray Turner,
Yes.
Natalie Ball.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you guys for this. I really appreciate it. Again, I think we had a great discussion, and I truly appreciate the energy, the passion. We will take all the input that you gave us today. We'll condense some of that information, bring it back for further consideration. We will look at some of those pieces, Ms. Zendejas, that you mentioned and that are brought forward in terms of things that we should be looking at as we consider schools. And we will bring in, those ideas that you have presented so far so you guys can continue to digest the information and analyze it. Again, I would suggest that everybody go back and take a look at the study that was done. A lot of the questions that you guys asked are in there in terms of students that transfer into our district and the different considerations as they came up with that projection for the enrollment. Anything else, Art, before we leave? If not,
just real fast, Renee. Just wanted to dovetail on Ms. Zendejas's on Brenda's idea about the metrics. We will. I wrote down the things that she recommended, which were great suggestions. We've got the list that we had put together earlier, and let's work together. We'll try to get that posted onto the website before the next meeting, so you guys can take a look at that and start using that as a tool to formulate. Can talk today to formulate some additional recommendations coming into the meeting on the 25th, on the March 4th. Excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I know that we had an item there around board update, but that was from last time. We will discuss board update next meeting. And with that, I will adjourn and I will see you guys next Thursday. Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Great meeting
Thank
tonight, by the
you.
way. Thank you very much. Great meeting. Great meeting.